Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well. How about a middle of the night bonus upload? I have got a pounding headache, cannot sleep, so I figured, hey, let's put something together for y'all who are in the same boat as I am. So before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below, merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They all were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost a cent. Click that like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon. And finally, folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And they definitely do matter. Now, everyone, I've taken far too much of your time. Let's jump into tonight's middle of the night bonus, shall we?
A few years ago, my friends and I went on a 45-mile, 3-night kayaking trip down the Green River in Kentucky, which runs above the Mammoth Cave System, the world's longest known cave system with more than 400 miles of surveyed passageways. We brought everything we needed in our kayaks and one canoe. Food, tent, water filtration system, etc. We camped each night on a riverbank when it started to get dark and we found level enough ground. The first night was uneventful, except to say there was nothing like a wall of fireflies against the mountainous, black tree line at night in the middle of nowhere. The second day, around sunset, after a long day of kayaking and baking in the July heat, we came upon a stream on the bank that opened up into a large ravine. The stream, as we found out, was a cave spring, pouring out blue, freezing, cold cave water into a lagoon. About 30 feet wide and so deep the blue water turned black after a few feet. The lagoon had a long sandy beach secluded by hills on either side and a tall overhanging cliff behind and above us. It was a beautiful, otherworldly place. Time moved very slow there. We decided to camp there for the night. The sand was soft, white, and very fine. Ideal for ground sleeping. For some reason, the place deeply frightened me. But I didn't speak up. We were all tired, and everyone was having fun. We built a small fire and enjoyed the stars through the leafy canopy for a while before everyone went to bed. I slept hard that night. At around 5 in the morning, I woke up with the urge to relieve myself. It was still dark. I had the tent door zipper about halfway open, and I had just popped my head out when I heard a loud and terrible roar/scream. I immediately cowered back into the tent and zipped it closed and waited. The scream came from about 10 feet to my left, near the dwindling fire. It was a high-pitched, but not like an owl's scream, although I'm not ruling it out. It was a wretched, pained scream that got lower pitched at the end. Now, being that we were in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, most likely it was a fox or a boar or some kind of bird. Whatever it was, I lie awake for an hour listening. I heard absolutely nothing. Granted, we were on a soft beach, but I didn't hear a single twig snap or a leaf crinkle when whatever it was finally shuffled away. It was bizarre. I should mention at this time that up the beach and off to the side of the lagoon was a small, dry cave opening, maybe 3 feet wide. I can't say with any certainty that it is not some ancient cave-dwelling creature that surfaced to investigate our camp. I somehow fell back to sleep and awoke the next morning shaken. I asked any of my friends if they heard the scream, and no one had. We pressed down the Green River. The third night, at dusk, we came upon a large rocky beach. We pulled our boats ashore and decided this would have to be done, as we didn't want to go further down river, risking being stuck in the water at dark. This rocky beach was where the river split into two, and in the middle formed a collection of pale rock, tall grass, dried out wood, a desolate pile of muck the size of a football field. The landmass was covered in jumping sand spiders and tiny frogs, again otherworldly. We set up camp, ate, and all went to bed around the same time. It was silent for probably 20 to 30 minutes. I'm not really sure. I was asleep, as the others most likely were. Suddenly my dream was interrupted by what sounded like a booming, loud, mechanical wooden beast. I awoke and shot straight up. It was truly the loudest thing I had ever heard. It sounded like a massive bulldozer tearing down a huge steel and wood building. Then came a boom, followed by its echo throughout the river valley. The animals shifted and the birds flew away. We were all awoke by this crash and yelling in confusion to each other in our tents. Eventually, we all decided that it was just a tree falling and went back to sleep. The next morning, I thought about it some more. It didn't sound like just a tree falling. It almost had a roar-like quality. We found no evidence of anything out of the ordinary, so we packed up and headed out onto the river one last time to head home. My friends and I still talk about that trip. We did the same kayak trip a couple years later, and nothing out of the ordinary happened. No mysterious forest noise. Now, really quick, what's creepy about this is if you Google Mammoth Cave to Land Between the Lakes, it's the river. You're traveling on that river. It's pretty much a straight shot. It's a 2-hour car ride, but I'm imagining it's faster traveling by water. Definitely some creepy area right there. There's been numerous Dogman and Sasquatch encounters in Mammoth Cave, and we all know about the Land Between the Lakes, the many stories that have come out of there. But yeah, wow, that's, I don't know if I'd really want to kayak that. How about you? Today's second encounter. To preface, I grew up in the rural woods of the Midwest. My grandparents had a cabin on 160 acres in the Ozarks, and my family home was in the woods of Ohio. I now live out west in a large city with my husband and kids, but his family has a cabin in northern Idaho, where we would spend a lot of time in the summer. That's where this all took place. So, when I say I know the woods, I really do. This happened a few years ago in the middle of summer. We had arrived at the cabin only to realize my husband somehow had totally spaced out and forgot to pack my hiking boots. I was livid because all I had was a cheap pair of flip-flops, and I had been looking forward to going hiking that weekend. It kind of put a sour mood to the evening, and we settled in. The cabin isn't much, and, though in the woods, is part of the community or cluster of other cabins. The one perk to ours is that it's right against a large field surrounded by woods. It's private property, and there's some weird stories and history with the family that owns it. But the field is mostly abandoned. We have a 4-foot barbed wire fence that runs the length of the field to separate our land from that. It's not too far from the cabin, I'd say maybe 20 feet from our porch to the fence line. That night after dinner, I made up the air mattress for the kids and folded out the sofa bed for us. Soon, everyone else was asleep, but since I have horrible insomnia, I was still up at around 2 a.m., reading my Kindle and sipping my wine when I heard the most god-awful noise outside. I slipped on my flip-flops and poked my head out the front door. There was a sound coming from the field. I stepped out onto the porch to listen more intently. It's the sound of a coyote being hurt. At first, I thought it was possibly stuck in a trap, and I got so angry. My husband's family are known for our dogs, and the idea of someone trapping near us made me so angry. I can't tell you how or why, but Every cell in my body was screaming for me to help it. I ran inside to get the flashlight. It was a new moon, so zero light outside. And, once again, found myself upset because I didn't have my boots. There was no way I was going to make it, even to the fence line with my flip-flops. Between the woods and the terrain, it was happening near the corner of our property. That can be the best called the trash heap, abandoned camper, woodpile, metal drums for burning, etc. I had no idea what I could even do to help, but I just so badly felt like I needed to do something. So I went back outside. All I could do was listen. The more I listened, the more I realized it was being attacked by something. And that's when the hair on my neck stood up. I realized everything was dead quiet. I've never before or after heard the woods like that. Whatever was attacking that coyote was doing it silently. No snarl, no bark, no yip or growl. And as I stood there frozen and listening, I heard the final noises as the coyote died. I had tears in my eyes because it was such an awful sound. As soon as it died, I was hit with a force of sounds around me. Suddenly the neighbors' dogs were howling and barking, the bugs and crickets started up. It was like a switch had been flipped. It went from no sound to all of the sounds in the blink of an eye. That's when I heard the footsteps. Whatever had attacked the coyote was suddenly on our side of the fence. It was walking along the fence line and clearly bipedal. I can't stress this enough. I grew up in the woods. Humans and animals sound different, and this sounded bipedal. It was clearly walking on two legs. I kept staring along the line, trying to see whatever it was. But as the footsteps grew closer to the middle of the property, and still I couldn't see anything, I panicked and quickly ran back into the cabin. I locked the door, grabbed a hatchet, and woke my husband up. I couldn't believe he was able to sleep through everything. He hadn't heard a thing. The next morning, we went directly to where I told him the sound was coming from, the attack, but couldn't see anything. Though the field at this time of year is 4-foot-tall grass, we didn't expect to see anything, and I was not about to hop that fence and go looking for trouble. I will say I have never been so thankful for not having boots that weekend, because without a doubt I would have tried to hop that fence that night. I just know I would have. Something in me was screaming out to make it stop. Anyway, I'm sure I'm rambling a bit. I felt so alone for this for years. My husband believes me, but, we have no logical answer. Today's third part of the upload. A couple nights ago, I saw something I still can't fully understand or explain. First, a little background. I live in mid-Michigan in a small residential suburban town surrounded by cornfields. You know the type. However, I do live in a more populated area as my parents' house, where I currently reside, is located within walking distance from our downtown. Our street is by no means desolate, dark, or isolated, and most of the houses are fairly close to one another. A pretty urban setting given the town itself. Okay, back to the other night. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and since it's pretty normal for me to be up late, me and my dog have developed what I call our little routine. He comes to my door, lets out a huff to inform me that he's there, and then we go downstairs, where I let him outside through the front door to go to the bathroom. After completing his business, he comes in and we share a midnight snack of ham straight from the fridge. Now keep in mind my dog is extremely well trained and very old. He doesn't need a leash or a fence to keep him from running away. He always comes right back after he's done. He'll even wait at the door if you're not there. So on this particular night, I open the door for him, and I'm just about to turn and walk away so I can prepare our midnight snack when I notice he's still standing on the porch, staring across the street. This isn't completely out of the norm for him, but this was lasting a bit longer than normal. When he finally jumps off the porch, I follow his line of sight, where he has been staring, and I see what looks like a large dog or maybe even a wolf slinking across my neighbor's yard on the other side of the street. For the first few seconds, I'm trying to figure out what the hell this thing is, because it looks like it could be a dog, but something's not right. It's too long, and the way it's moving is not normal. And even though it's only about 50 feet away, it looks like it's blurry. I can't think of another way to describe it. Nonetheless, none of this made sense. At this point, I go into panic mode because so far this creature hasn't seemed to notice me or my dog, but if it does, my dog doesn't stand a chance. Like I said, he's old, and also a Pomeranian. Whatever this thing was, it would destroy him with no doubt. I decide to slowly open the outer glass door, hoping to create just enough noise to alert my dog that it's time to come in. But not enough for whatever this thing is to hear me. Luckily, my dog notices right away and starts running back toward me. But at the same time, this dog creature starts turning toward me as well, and slowly. It almost felt fake how unnatural it moved, like animatronics or something. I'm not even sure what I'm looking at, but I have this indiscernible feeling that I'm not supposed to be seeing it. So as this thing is turning to look at me, my dog is coming through the door simultaneously, and for about 1 second I take my eyes off this creature thing to look down at my dog and close the door. When I look back up, this thing has moved about 30 feet to the left into my neighbor's driveway rather than their yard, and is standing on its hind fucking legs at around 7 to 8 feet tall, staring at me. Now I'm really freaked out. How did it move so quickly, and how did it not make a single sound? How's it so tall? I literally looked away for maybe a second. I look away again and lock the door and gather myself, only to look again and see absolutely nothing. It was gone. This whole ordeal only lasted maybe 20 to 30 seconds total. Shaking, I give my dog his ham and mine, and I run downstairs to my brother's room in the basement to tell him what just happened. Being the normal 19-year-old and playing video games, his response was, "Wow, that's super weird." But honestly, I just need to tell somebody to confirm that what just happened actually happened, and that I wouldn't wake up the next day and convince myself it was a dream. Over the last few days, I've told anyone who would listen about what I saw, including my parents. Those who are closer to me seemed a bit more unnerved because, like I mentioned earlier, I don't usually believe in this type of thing. They could tell I was shaken by whatever I saw that night. Tonight, after some random Googling as a result of my restless mind, I came across what appears to be the exact description of what I saw, the Dogman. But now I am fully convinced I saw one in front of my very own eyes, and it saw me too. Today's fourth encounter. This experience was told to me by my cousin. We were swapping spooky stories at my uncle's cabin when he told me this one. He and two of his friends decided to take off for the weekend to go camping. They grabbed their gear, food, camper van, and drove out to the mountain range. They checked the forecast beforehand, and it said it would be sunny with no precipitation for the duration of the weekend. It's mid-January. As they're setting up camp, Dave says he's going to eat some magic mushrooms and go on a vision quest. The other two laugh it off and tell him to be careful and not to wander too far. A few hours pass, and Dave is yet to return. As it's starting to get dark, he emerges from the bushes with a puzzled look on his face. He explained that his trip was going just fine until he turned and realized he had lost track of the path. He stumbled around the forest for what seemed like an eternity in a thought loop. It wasn't until he stumbled and fell that he realized he was going in the opposite direction of camp. He turned around and doubled back. As the evening sets in and the crew is getting ready to call it a night, it starts to snow. Then it starts to really snow, blizzard even. They pack everything in the van and decide to leave the next day. At around 1 or 2 in the morning, Jake wakes up covered in goosebumps. He climbs out of his bed and wanders around the van, first checking to make sure it's locked. It is. He turns around and tries to look out the window. It's completely frosted over. As he's trying to make out anything at all, a feeling comes over him like there's someone or something looking directly back at him from outside. He dismisses it and goes back to bed. The next morning, they're awakened to the snow coming down. Jake, still thinking about last night, walks around to the window he felt uneasy at. To his horror, there are bipedal tracks leading up to the van window, but none leading away. He runs and tells the friends. They agree to get out there ASAP. They get to the nearest gas station, still very remote. Their van breaks down. As they're trying to figure out what to do, this fella drives up and pumps and says, "We haven't seen weather like this in 20 years. You boys be careful out there. Something's not right." Then he drives away. Out of nowhere, this large, dark red van pulls up directly in front of them, and the driver gruffly says, "Hurry up, get in. I'll take you to the nearest town." With a little hesitation, they get inside. As they drive, he starts going faster and faster until they reach speeds not recommended for winter. Sure, they're going to die, ghost white, speechless, they ride. He gets them to the nearest town, opens the door and says, "Hurry up, get out." They oblige, and before they can even think to thank him, he pulls a U-turn and drives back the same direction they came. They later found out that the first man they talked to at the gas station drove for a couple of kilometers only to meet his demise via a head-on collision. It's a crazy world we live in. It's a strange story. It comes from a very honest person as well. He wouldn't have exaggerated the details. I'm also intrigued by the guy who drove them out of there. Very mysterious. This would be somewhere near Jasper National Park, Canada.
Alright folks, I hope you enjoyed this middle of the night bonus upload or beginning of your day bonus upload. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. Guys, you are what makes this channel so special. Thank you. It is so appreciated what you guys have really done for this channel. God, I can't express the gratitude. With that being said, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on your family, your friends. We know these creatures are real, and we know they're out there. God bless you all.